Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is all about the search for a crystal skull. I know a lot of people have issues with this movie and its MacGuffin, including myself, frankly. It feels so different from the historical, religious treasures of the other three films. But is the Crystal Skull a historical, religious treasure after all? Today I'll be looking at the real history behind crystal skulls. Crystal skulls were allegedly first discovered in the late 1800s in Latin and South America. They were supposedly created before Christopher Columbus ever arrived in the Americas. Like Indy points out in the movie, they appeared to have been delicately carved with high levels of detail, and yet no evidence of machine marks could be found, at least not to the naked eye. Thanks to the Smithsonian and British Museum, archaeological studies in 2008 found markings that suggested some highly abrasive substance was used in their creation, a substance that wasn't invented until the 1900s, which ruled out the idea that the skulls were extraterrestrial in origin or even ancient artifacts. The most famous crystal skull was discovered in 1924 by Anna Mitchell Hedges and is known as the Mitchell Hedges skull. Anna was the daughter of a British adventurer and author named Frederick Mitchell Hedges, and she claimed to have found the skull at a dig in Belize. But her father never mentioned the find from that dig in his records, nor does any record ever show that Anna was even present for it. In fact, a letter from Frederick to his brother written in 1943 stated that he simply purchased it in an auction. Despite the uncertain nature of its origin, it was still an impressive piece carved from a single block of clear quartz. However, forensic facial reconstruction over the skull resulted in a European face rather than that of an ancient American. But it sounds like Frederick Mitchell Hedges, being an author after all, embellished upon the history of his purchase in the first edition of his autobiography, claiming it was once used by the high priest of Maya to perform rites and it allowed him to will death upon his enemies. Later editions of the book omitted this section, probably because it's bull. But that's not the only crystal skull that exists in our world. The British Museum owns one that they purchased from Tiffany's, the jewelry company. It's very similar to the Mitchell Hedges skull, but not as detailed. Studies of it placed it as European in origin, carved in the 1800s. Crystal skulls in Paris and the Smithsonian have similar stories. The Smithsonian skull was mailed to the museum anonymously as an Aztec artifact, but was proven to be carved with that modern technology, and has been displayed as a modern fake. So it would appear that none of the crystal skulls we know of are ancient or even from South America, as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull would suggest. There has been no evidence found linking those cultures with crystal skulls at all. So where did that connection even come from? I guess it's just all the false claims, largely from the Mitchell Hedges, who said that they were from Belize or used in Mayan ceremonies. None of the real crystal skulls even match the elongated shape of the one from the movie. But let's look at that for a second. Indiana Jones claims that some ancient native cultures practiced artificial cranial deformation to honor the gods, or in this case, the aliens that helped them start their civilization. That is actually true in a sense. The Maya, Inca, and even some North American tribes deformed their skulls, most likely to signify group affiliation or social status. Some cultures did believe an elongated head was a sign of intelligence or closeness with the spirit world. Of course, any connection with ancient extraterrestrials is highly unlikely, unless you're that guy from that meme. But there is this idea that aliens visited Earth long ago to help out with technology. Some carvings in Italy show what could be representations of modern-day astronauts with helmets. As for South America, the Nazca lines in Peru have been speculated to be linked with the ancient astronaut theory, and they actually do appear in the film. Finally, let's look at the claim that the skulls have any supernatural properties at all. One individual claimed they could cause premonitions, cure cancer, or kill people, and that individual was Anna Mitchell Hedges, so she's not exactly the most trustworthy source, but she did claim to have a vision of John F. Kennedy's assassination, and she also said she used its magic to kill a man. Authors seem to have been intrigued with the skulls and the claims of the Mitchell Hedges, false though they may have been, and they went on to write their own stories. For example, one novel ties the skulls with the Mayan calendar that ended on December 21, 2012, claiming that reuniting all 13 mystical skulls would stop the predicted catastrophe. Another so-called prophecy claimed that when the 13 skulls were brought together, they would reveal some universal knowledge. The number 13 seems to have completely come out of nowhere, but it was then used as part of the legend in the film, and Irina Spalko seems to die after having too much knowledge dumped into her head. So my best guess is that when writing Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Lucas, Spielberg, Jeff Nathanson, and David Koepp just used the Crystal Skull idea as a jumping off point. They took all the nonsense made up by the Mitchell Hedges and then combined it with the ancient astronaut theories that exist in South America. This is the first exploration into these artifacts I've had where almost none of it appears to be even remotely true, not even an ancient legend. In fact, Philip Jenkins, a former history professor from Baylor University, said nearly everything surrounding the mythology of crystal skulls can be traced back to the lies spread by the Mitchell Hedges and then perpetuated by New Age writers. I've got to admit, I was completely surprised researching this video. I figured at least some of this stuff would be rooted in history or some kind of religious or cultural significance, like the Ark, the Sankara stones, or the Grail. All I knew about crystal skulls I had learned from the movie, so I figured there were some American cultures that really had crystal skulls or something. I'm really glad I did this video because I was just being completely ignorant. Anyway, right before closing out, I thought it was worth mentioning that the crystal skull from the movie actually appears in an episode of The Clone Wars, hidden in the Trandoshan hunting trophy room in the episode Wookiee Hunt. This is still a Star Wars channel after all. But that's it for today. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for mostly Star Wars but occasional indie content, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and remember, it's not the years, it's the mileage.